Hello everyone, and welcome back to Whispers of Turkish Stars. If heartfelt stories about your favorite Turkish celebrities tug at your emotions, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join the community. Today we're sharing a story that has quietly lingered behind glossy photographs and red carpets, a story that has brushed against millions of hearts without ever really being told out loud. It is the silent ache and unspoken love of Alina Boz, and the echo of a goodbye that came from Alp Navruz. For years, Alina chose caution over spectacle, shielding herself from the glare of curiosity with a calm, deliberate silence. That silence was her armor, a place where memories could rest without being questioned, where hope could breathe without being judged. And then, in a recent interview, she set the armor down. Her voice trembled, not for attention, but because the truth finally found a way to break through. She said something that stopped everyone cold. That all she had wanted was to marry him, that if he hadn't walked away, they would still be together today. The words did not come as a confession, they arrived like the last leaf of a long season falling, a quiet end to something that had long been changing. For months, Alina avoided talking about Alp. She kept her feelings tucked beneath the elegant curve of a soft smile, the kind that looks effortless until you realize how much effort it actually takes. Close friends say there was no scandal, no shouting, no storm, only a long, searing sadness that trailed her like a shadow. One friend, the kind you trust with names and dates and the fragile shape of your dreams, revealed something almost too intimate to repeat. The wedding was set in motion. The dress was chosen. The venue had been visited, more than once. The song, yes, there was even a song, the one that would cue the first steps onto a new life, had been picked out and played late at night just to see how the heart would sound next to it. And then he left. Not with noise, not with anger, but with a finality that felt like a door closing in an empty house. When he left, he carried a part of her heart with him, a part that had believed, with absolute faith, that love was about to become a home. During the interview, Alina didn't dramatize the past. She didn't need to. The honesty was dramatic enough. She described, in that calm way of hers, the days that followed and the picture that had lived in her mind, a ceremony by the sea, waves folding onto sand like vows repeating themselves in nature's language. She could still see the smile she had hoped to find on Alp's face, that quiet look that would have said, without words, "We made it." Then she described the moment everything changed. There was no goodbye in the way people expected, no careful speech about timing and needs and separate paths. One day, he was present. The next, he wasn't. No grand explanation. The future they had once sketched in the margins was suddenly erased, the paper still warm where the picture used to be. Her words reminded people that behind the famous name was a person who feels with a stubborn, human intensity. She wasn't a headline or a rumor. She was someone trying to stitch the days back together, one small act at a time, someone learning how to live with a memory that had no proper ending. And then came the turn in the story that made everything even more complicated. Months later, when life had rearranged itself into a quieter routine, Alp appeared again, this time with a grand gesture, a proposal offered not in whispers but in front of everyone. The moment replayed everywhere, as moments like that do. It looked like a perfect movie ending that had arrived late to its own screening. But Alina admitted she was torn. Part of her wanted to run toward him, to pick up where their hands had once fit. Another part of her wanted to say what her heart had learned during all those evenings when nothing made sense, that sometimes love is not enough when it does not arrive on time. She didn't blame him. She said it gently. Maybe he thought he was doing what was best, maybe he believed a different path would protect them both. But she also believed she had earned the right to speak her truth. If he hadn't left, she said, she would be with him now. She said it without bitterness, without trying to make anyone the villain. It was not an accusation. It was the simplest form of honesty. Even when she tried to deny it, all she had ever wanted was to marry him. The internet did what the internet does. It exploded. Only this time, the noise carried something soft with it. People wrote to her, not as fans, but as companions in a universal experience, the kind where you love someone who walks away without looking back. They recognized the feeling of being ready and alone, of standing at a threshold that never opened. Strangers saw themselves in her story. They wrote about train stations and airport gates, about kitchens and long car rides, about rings returned and rings kept in drawers as if they were small time capsules. And as the conversation grew, another layer of appreciation settled around her work. Viewers began to watch her performance in Morasly with a renewed tenderness, noticing the extra shimmer of emotion behind the eyes, the way she held silence like a sentence, the way she leaned into tenderness as if it were a place she knew by heart. The art had been colored by the life, and people could feel it. Despite the heartbreak, Alina left room for something that wasn't quite hope and wasn't quite surrender. True love, she said, doesn't really disappear, it just learns how to wait. It waits differently for everyone, sometimes patient, sometimes stubborn, sometimes quiet as an evening breeze. But even as she said it, she confessed she wasn't sure she wanted this love to return. The heart is complicated when it has been taught conflicting lessons. There is dignity, and there is longing. There is pride, and there is memory. To carry all of that at once is like crossing a narrow bridge while balancing an entire history in your hands. Through it all, Alp kept his public silence, at least for a time. Sources whispered that he reached out carefully, that he understood words were no longer enough, that promises would have to be proven, that only consistent actions count. Big speeches are bright for a moment, they do not warm a house unless they become routine gestures that keep the lights on. What began as a celebrity romance has shifted into something else. A quiet lesson about time, vulnerability, and the price of unasked questions. The story suggests that even the strongest love can grow fragile when silence lasts longer than it should, when apologies arrive late, when courage visits only after the chance to be brave has passed. There is almost nothing sadder, Alina implied, than being ready to love while the other person has already chosen to go. That sentence concluded the interview, but it did not finish the story. It only placed a bookmark in a life that is still being written. Friends say Alina still moves between a sorrow she respects and a future she can't quite see. Some days, that future looks like a brand new page, crisp and steady, with margins wide enough to breathe. Other days, it feels like an echo of what might have been, a hallway that loops back on itself. She doesn't always talk about it. She doesn't have to. The people who know her best can tell by the way she pauses before answering certain questions, by the way her laughter sometimes carries a trace of distance, like a shoreline scene from far away. And yet, she has not shut the world out. She works, she shows up, she opens herself to the quiet rituals that make a life: morning light through the window, tea cooling by a script, a call returned, a walk taken, a song played all the way to the end without skipping the hard parts. In private, those who care for her remind her that she did everything she could with the tools she had and the truth she knew. They remind her that love is not a test you pass or fail, it's a language, and sometimes two people learn different dialects at different speeds. They tell her she was brave to love and brave to speak, brave to let the world see the parts of her that were still mending. They tell her she did not lose because the ending was not what she imagined. They tell her she carried herself with grace in both the dream and the wake-up. As for Alp, there are only rumors and hints. A pair of eyes held a beat too long, a car pulling up to the curb and leaving with a second thought, a message sent at an hour when people confess things they can't say at noon. It is said he understands now that timing is not a detail in love, it is the frame that holds the painting steady. If he wants to return, he will have to prove he can be present not just in the applause but in the quiet, not just for the promise but for the daily keeping of it. Whether he will try, and whether she will let him, remains a line unwritten. There is a lesson here for anyone listening. If you have something to say to the person you love, say it while the air is still warm with possibility. If you are afraid, be afraid together, not apart. If you need time, say how much and why, and then keep your word. Silence can protect, but it can also isolate. It can preserve, but it can also dilute. The space between two people is either watered or it dries. Every day is a chance to choose which. We are left with two images, both true at once. The first, Alina by the sea in her mind, watching a horizon that once promised a ceremony filled with salt-washed vows and a smile that meant safety. The second, Alina as she is today, standing at her own edge, deciding which stories to carry forward and which to fold carefully and place back on the shelf. Somewhere between those two images is the life she is building, patient, resilient, honest. Maybe that new page is already turning. Maybe the echo will soften into a song she can hum without hurting. Maybe both are true, and that is what growing looks like. What do you think? Do Alina and Alp have a real chance to begin again, or are some wounds too deep to trust the same road twice? Share your thoughts in the comments and tell us which Turkish stars you want to hear about next. For more stories like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join the channel. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video, right here on Whispers of Turkish Stars.